The third aspect of our development strategy I would like to mention is our desire to promote more dialogue, because sustainable development is impossible unless civil society is brought on board, and that means not least scientists and academics. Researchers need to maintain contact with those working in the field, and policymakers, for their part, need researchers to identify new solutions and, even more important, to enhance the effectiveness of projects and programs. PACNet has set itself the task of intensifying this dialogue. Your work improves the cooperation between the various players. This is evidenced by your Best Practice Awards for outstanding and innovative projects. So, in my mind, like in a nutshell, we see PACNet as an important platform for dialogue between researchers, between research and practice, and for achieving our common development goals. And that is why we are proud to be amongst PACNet's founding members. In choosing to look at the new global players, this year's PACNet conference has taken on a particularly important subject. A number of former developing countries have now grown into key political and economic players. The rapid growth experienced by some emerging economies has lifted millions of people out of poverty indeed. A lot of lessons can be learned from these countries' development trajectories, particularly by the new African lions who want to follow in the footsteps of the Asian tigers. With our new fund for emerging economies and other innovative financing instruments, we are harnessing additional private capital for investment. And that gives us new chances to spend more public money, and that's very important to me. That gives us the chance to spend more public money for the LDCs, for the least developed countries in our world. Yet increased consumption and industrial production in these emerging economies has also placed increased pressure on resources and accelerated the dangerous process of global warming. So when it comes to securing global public goods, such as an intact environment and climate, peace and security, food security, and stable financial markets, the only option is to cooperate with the large emerging economies. If we want to find a solution to these major development questions, we need to work together and adopt new forms of bilateral and multilateral cooperation. In our bilateral cooperation, for example, we have stopped development aid in the traditional sense to China. After all, China is now in a position to finance their own development, and we want to take a more nuanced and open approach to cooperating with middle-income countries and emerging economies so as to better respond to their needs. For instance, we plan to expand cooperation in the field of science and technology with China, but also with India, South Africa, and Brazil, making it a major aspect of bilateral cooperation with those countries. We believe there is enormous potential for climate-friendly growth. The large emerging economies also play a significant role in cooperation with low-income countries and can themselves partner up with these countries. We want to make greater use of instruments like trilateral cooperation and South-South cooperation. And this also includes more business activities between developing countries, emerging economies, and industrialized countries. That is something we want to encourage more. Given the right environment, and I'm convinced about that, businesses could be the driving force for international development. Self-sustaining, inclusive economic growth is the best way of creating jobs and income. And the BMZ is therefore helping the German private sector to make its investments in emerging economies and in developing countries. We do that with the goal to create win-win situations for all concerned and to emphasize it. Never ever in our common world we will get a sustainable development without a sustainable economic development. And since entering office, we have expanded programs for economic cooperation considerably. We will be making more use of development partnerships with the private sector and in this way bringing on board as many private businesses as possible. In the past, too little was done to get the private sector involved in developing countries. We will be expanding our program in this area, the development program with the 3 Ps, and extending it to inclusive business models at the base of the pyramid. And while we are on this subject, let me say how pleased I am that Anand Nadkarni from Tata has made it to today's conference. I don't know whether he's here in between or not. I think not. And it's great that he's attending this very important conference. But cooperation with the emerging economies is not only vital in the bilateral field. Following the reform of voting rights at the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which Germany was instrumental in supporting, the emerging economies now have a real say in the development policy of the multilateral financial institutions. And that's of utmost importance in my mind. China has just now replaced Germany as the World Bank's third largest shareholder, but that position also comes with a great deal of responsibility, Mr. Lin, for the People's Republic of China. It is at multilateral level that standards are defined and the global regulatory framework established. The rise of the emerging economies has lent a new dynamic to global value chains. If the very poorest countries are also to be able to benefit from this rapid process of globalization, we need to create a fair global enabling environment. And this means, for example, dismantling trade barriers and market distorting export subsidies, something that is crucial to successful development. This demand has been raised for decades now by development policymakers of all stripes. If Doha fails this year and the rest of Europe does not get on board, Germany's development minister, Dirk Niebel, is willing to make it alone on this matter, is willing to make it alone. He has already been assured of support from our Minister of Agriculture in Germany, and you can believe that really was very, very hard work. You can imagine that it is easier to teach a goat in proper garden management than to convince an agricultural minister to stop subsidies. And I'm delighted to see these new challenges facing us in our globally connected world, reflecting on the agenda of this year's PACNet annual conference. Many of the conclusions drawn by Justin Lin, the World Bank's first ever Chinese chief economist, are based on his experience of the Chinese economic miracle. But we will also this evening maybe having a heated debate, Mr. Lin, about China's involvement in Africa. The new development architecture offers a great deal of potential and also encourages us to reconsider our own approach. It is in all our interests to learn from each other, to conduct a discussion with each other as equals, but also to be able to criticize each other. And I myself am thinking that China particularly could show more development responsibility in Africa, that China is able to do more for development in Africa, to do more for sustainable jobs in Africa, and that China can help to establish better social and better ecological standards for development efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, PACNet's core topics, poverty reduction, equity and growth, remain vitally important for development policy and also for the emerging economies. We need new ideas on how to stimulate inclusive growth in each individual country. PACNet provides an important platform for doing so. And I am sure that your next 3 days here will be very productive. I hope that you will have some very, very fruitful discussions, gain lots of new information, and find new partnerships. And now let me pass the floor to Stefan Claassen and to Justin Lin. Thanks for your attention.